I'm Fred Wilkinson, Managing Editor of the National Provisioner. Today I'm talking with Tuffy Stone. He's a well-known barbecue pitmaster. And Tuffy, thank you for joining us here today.
Fred, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you. And Tuffy, your team is called Cool Smoke, correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
Maybe to get things started, could you just tell us a little bit about how you got into barbecue and about your barbecuing team, Cool Smoke?
Sure. And just stop me. Sometimes I get windy every now and then. But anyways, I started off in a French kitchen, training under Chef Alon, learning how to make really hard to pronounce, very expensive, fine food. And was initially just going to do that while I was going to college. I needed to make some income to pay my way through school, and really was only looking at it as a domestic skill. And anyways, long story short, I worked so hard for Chef Alon that he eventually made me a partner in his restaurant, and he kind of led me to my passion, which was being a chef and cooking. And then I met my wife, and we started a off-premise catering company that was trying to bring to the Richmond, Virginia community in which I live, fine dining in a catering form. And we were successful at that. We're still in business 25 years later. But as we grew the company, I eventually found myself back in probably 2004, just managing the business and not cooking anymore. And Fred, as a chef, I was missing cooking. I like cooking. I like cutting carrots, onions, and celery. And so I felt this need to kind of like take on a new culinary endeavor. And for whatever reason in my mind, I bought a barbecue pit. I got some hickory. I got some pork butts. I made a rub. I seasoned these pork butts. I built a fire, and I ruined a big old load of meat. And and it was exciting. It was surprising. It was so many things. But anyways, I've always been curious. I always like to learn. I like to read. I like to ask questions. I like to find mentors who can, show me new things. And so in my research of trying to learn how to cook barbecue and cook with fire, I've also found out about this competition circuit out there for competitive barbecue. And so I entered a contest actually in my hometown, which I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia, back in 2004. And my only goal was, I wasn't going there to be competitive. I was just going there I figured it'd be a good place to learn about barbecue. And so I had to come up with a team name. And so Cool Smoke, I kind of came up with that idea because my catering company is so specific, so demanding, so got to be perfect all the time, and it's stressful. And so I was hoping that barbecue would be more relaxed and cool. And then the other idea I had was that we're cooking at a lower temperature, so Cool Smoke became my name.
All right, that makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Can you tell us a little bit about the world of competitive barbecue and what that
Yeah,
means for you and your team?
it's pretty amazing. As I fell into that and became friends with people and started doing it more. It's funny. I said, and this is truthful. I had to change my cellular phone plan 3 times one year because I eventually made friends all over the country. I can say now I've got friends literally all over the world, but back then it was like I went from hardly ever talking on the cell phone to all of a sudden I was talking to people in Kansas City and Texas and all over the place. But there's a few different circuits out there. There's Memphis in May. There's IBCA. There's Florida Barbecue Association. There's Kansas City Barbecue Society. There's a bunch of different sanctioning bodies, and so depending on which one you enter, some of them you'll have to cook chicken, pork ribs, pork butts, beef brisket. Some of them, Memphis MA, we just recently cooked that. You cook one category, and down at Memphis MA, it's all about the pork. So you'll either enter whole hog, whole shoulder, or pork ribs. But they judge you on taste, tenderness, and appearance. and it's your goal. If you're going to be successful, I've got to cook something for you, Fred, that you like, and you might like sweet barbecue, you might like spicy barbecue, your friend might like it another way. And so if you're really going to if you're going to probably hit the success at doing well, you got to figure out how to put together a taste that has broad appeal and everybody likes. And probably most importantly is we've got to nail that tenderness. We got to make it perfectly cooked. And I don't care if it's cookies or barbecue, getting that texture right is everything in making somebody happy.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. Like I told you earlier, I lived in Kansas City for more than 20 years, and I, to be honest, in retrospect, I kind of got spoiled by how good the barbecue was, and I
Oh yeah.
thought moving down here to the deep south, it's like, oh yeah, there'll be good barbecue everywhere, but it's I've not yet found barbecue down here that is as consistently good as what you could find almost anywhere in Kansas City. So lesson learned.
Well, Kansas City, I mean, that's one of the places that'll be on the short list of identifying a style of barbecue. In Kansas City, I've got lots of friends there, and friends that have restaurants, barbecue restaurants there, and it's a mecca for good barbecue.
Yeah, that's definitely been my experience. And so, speaking of that, what there are various different styles of barbecue. There's the Carolina style, there's Kansas City style, Memphis style, Texas style. How would you characterize your style compared to one of those others that people may have eating experience with?
There's probably a couple of answers to that, Fred. I mean, if you come to Virginia, and I mean, I started a group of barbecue restaurants, which I've now sold, but you come into one of those restaurants and you ask for a barbecue sandwich here in Virginia, we know you mean pork. You know, we're not going to say, what do you want, pork, beef, or chicken? We know you want a barbecue pork sandwich. Virginia barbecue here is very, it's pretty much synonymous with Carolina style barbecue. It's going to be pork, and it's going to have a vinegar based dressing or sauce on it, and very few spices. But I think as cooks and people, whether we cook, for ourselves at home or cook in a restaurant or whatever, a lot of times how we make something is influenced by how we like it. I like all types of barbecue. What's brought me success in competition barbecues, probably closer to the barbecue that you were so fond of in Kansas City. And it's going to be a rub that's probably going to have salt and pepper and granulated garlic, granulated onion, paprika, maybe some cumin, but it's going to be reddish in color. And then the sauce is going to be tomato based. And for me, I get windy. I told you earlier I get windy, but for me, barbecue, I always want the meat to be the star. I think probably the big mistake a lot of people make when we first make barbecue is we over smoke it, we undercook it. Nobody likes tough barbecue, but I want the rub. I want my rub and my sauce and my smoke. I always say I like to treat smoke like salt and pepper. I want to treat it like an ingredient, but I want those flavors to support the delicious flavor of the meat itself. And so if I hit my marks, if I was cooking for you and we were in your backyard, I mean, hopefully that chew is succulent, it's juicy, it's really delicious. You get to taste the meat, and then you get these lingering, beautiful flavors of the rub and the sauce and the smoke as part of that taste. But I don't want to mask over the natural flavor of the beef or the chicken or the pork or whatever it is that I'm cooking.
You mentioned that kind of sounds like pork is kind of your bread and butter barbecue as far as what you grew up on and what you like to cook. Have you noticed any particular trends in the barbecue world, whether competitive or not, about a particular, whether it's pork, beef, chicken, whatever particular piece of meat, and something interesting that barbecue chefs are doing with it these days?
Yeah, so there's been it's really been popular. I mean, barbecue's always been popular, but I'd say probably the last 10 or 15 years, it's even becomes more so. I'd say the last 2 years, everybody's been cooking at home, cooking in their backyard. there's a lot of information out there. I mean, where you can learn things. We don't even have to read a book anymore. We can just, pull out our phone and watch a video or read something and learn. And so with all of this, I think you're seeing, as far as trends go, I think first of all, I think we're seeing the level of barbecue rise and get better. There's techniques that are happening in barbecue. One would be like the Texas crutch. The Texas crutch is where, a lot of times when we cook barbecue, we got to cook these meats for hours and hours and hours. And sometimes they can get too much color on them, get too much smoke on them, and still not be tender. And so the Texas crutch is a technique that we can put just the right amount of color on it, just the right amount of smoke on there, but it's still not tender. And then we can wrap it in either butcher paper or aluminum foil, and then return it back to the cooker and continue to cook it till it's tender, but we're not getting any more smoke on that meat. We're preserving that color. If you keep some of that moisture inside, and so we're seeing a lot of evolution with techniques. We're seeing now where brines and injections are a really great vehicle for bringing in some complementary flavors to the meats that we're cooking. Brisket was, historically, I mean, you come from a mecca of barbecue, but brisket would be a Kansas City or a Texas type of barbecue meat. But we're seeing now the rise in popularity of brisket. And so where in some cuisines, some places, brisket would have been cooked like a pot roast, now it's being cooked like barbecue, where we can slice that flat, get a nice tender slice off of it, but it's not falling apart. It's not, as far as flavors go, and there's so many influencers out there now. There's so many people providing good content and interest when it comes to cooking barbecue. And so, I think the classics like Kansas City style barbecue, Texas barbecue, Memphis barbecue, North Carolina, South, that's all there, and the knowledge is growing and the expertise is getting better. But I think we're also starting to see creativity where we'll use the cooking techniques of good barbecue, but we might bring in some other flavors that maybe are just new or interesting. Some of my rubs that I have actually recipes in my cookbook, I was bringing in some ingredients like fennel pollen or sumac, or I don't want to offend anybody. I think the most successful people in barbecue chefs as a whole, the industry, the food service industry. It's my obligation as a cook or a chef or a pitmaster to cook something for you that you really enjoy and like. So if I give you something that's off-putting or polarizing, I might not be successful with that. But I think you're seeing some ingredients get incorporated into barbecue now that you might not have thought of. And if we do it in the right way, you still enjoy it as a consumer, as a guest, as a patron. But maybe it's just a little unique.
Yeah, well, I know that chefs and food service people in general are kind of always about what's the new flavor, what's the new thing. So innovation like that is, I think, usually a very good thing when blending styles and stuff, and seeing what people can come up with.
Well, I got something for your viewers, your listeners, people that watch your show that are in the food service. I think if one of us can figure out some new things to do with the ham on a pig, you could find great success. As we continue to go on, some of the foods that historically have been really popular and really successful, some of those things have changed. And so we're not seeing the same demand for, so I'm from Virginia, we're not seeing the same demand for country hams like there used to be historically. So my goal as a chef, as a creator, is trying to figure out what can I do with fresh ham that could rise the popularity of that. So anybody out there in the food service, chefs, whatever, listening, I'm here to tell you, if you can figure it out, go find somebody to help you execute it, because you could find great success.
All right. Well, it sounds like the challenge has been issued. Let's see what they come up with, and I'm sure it'll be good. So, Tuffy, what is competition-wise? What is coming up for you next?
So I've got an upcoming event in a couple of weeks. I'll be cooking in the nation's capital in Washington, D.C. It's a pretty cool event. They block off Pennsylvania Avenue. They'll put fencing up, and I'm actually going to be I'm doing a demo with Chairman's Reserve where I'm going to be doing a pork tenderloin demonstration. I've been doing this event for years. It's wildly popular, big groups of people. It's pretty neat that they're able to block off Pennsylvania Avenue, and of course it smells great at this event. But I'll be doing a teaching seminar for pork tenderloin. Probably one of the best things that ever happened to the pork industry is when the USDA said that we didn't have to cook our pork to 165 degrees, and they lowered the recommended internal temperature down to 145 degrees. So cuts like pork loin, pork tenderloin really benefited from that. But I'll be doing the DC competition, and besides the demonstration, it's a Kansas City Barbecue Society sanctioned event. So I'll be cooking pork butts, pork ribs, brisket, and chicken, and it's an accumulation of all those scores come together, and whoever has the highest overall score will be declared grand champion for the day.
Well, I hope burnt ends are part of that competition. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, burn-ins are, they're like just these little meat candy pieces. They're really delicious.
Yeah, they are good. They're, again, coming from Kansas City, it's kind of one of the signature barbecue items for that city.
Absolutely.
Well, Tuffy, thank you very much for taking time out to speak with me today. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's Fred. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I don't know if you do much traveling, but if you ever go, like we just were recently in Memphis in May, it's a huge celebration of pork. But if you ever get an opportunity to go to a barbecue contest, or you think you're going to go, shoot me a note, and I'll see who's cooking there, and set you up with someone who can bring you into their setting, and feed you some good food.
Tuffy, I will absolutely do that. That sounds amazing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Fred.